Welcome back, Lore Masters. Today we're going to be going over a little, kind of an older theory. This theory will help understand how Riven is not truly dead, understanding how Oryx is not truly dead, understanding how Zol is not dead, understanding how all the Hive deities we killed are not really dead. This will be mostly on how Oryx still lives on and how he's not dead. And how this theory will also go for Riven. Your actions reverberate through the darkness. I can hear it howl. I can hear its pain. Oryx is undone, truly. Finally, the Ascendant Realm is quiet. The Hive are now without a king. Only you, Guardian. Only you could have done this. We have found the powerful relics of which Toland's journal speaks of. Relics taken from the Ascendant Hive. The Blade of Famine, the Shroud of Iranuk, and most importantly, the ravenous heart from Oryx himself. The relics contain the secrets of the Hive, their darkest power, their oldest hunger, components to be assembled, components that will forge a weapon that can turn the Hive's deathly maw upon itself. Dare we build such a weapon bound to malice, a weapon that will have consequence. Remember, Guardians, the Hive had a choice, and now so do we. The choice the Hive had, of course, refers to the worms, the means of symbiosis or symbiotic factors that Oryx, Savathun, Zephyr agreed to in order to gain more strength. Alright. In order to create the Touch Malice, we had to collect a bunch of calcified fragments. I believe it was 45. This is a little while ago. So bear with me on this. Now, these calcified fragments were very cryptic. We didn't understand what they stood, what they said, what they, kind of what they meant. But one of them read, "The fragment hums with taken energy and burns to the touch. Eris may know how to safely dispose of it." Now, the fragments appear to hold some taken energy, and other in-game descriptions make it seem that they are still active. So the calcified fragments, they're biotic factors, they're still living, they still have a kind of energy inside of them that is not disposed of, that is still writhing inside. Your ghost says, "The fragment's temperature have dropped steadily since we picked them up. They're starting to strain my containment field. You might want to put a rush on this delivery." Furthermore, Eris seems to suggest in the Touch Malice Grimoire acquired that the calcified fragments may actually contain worms. This is mind-blowing. Okay, if these calcified fragments contain worms, well, first off, maybe that doesn't mean a worm that's inside of them. It could have been a worm that was liquefied and then hardened over time. So basically a fossil, but a fossil that has energy inside of it and is deadly and a vital source of power for another race. The evidence for where the fragments may contain worms reads, "When I behold the interiority of these cold fragments, I see blind, squirming creatures. Every wound they give, they fell also upon themselves. Every bite they tear from the light only deepens, never fills. The raging emptiness behind their terrible mouths." So this basically means a worm could never truly be satisfied. I'm not sure if that's what it truly means, though. If a worm can never be satisfied, that means that would make sense, though. That's why Oryx has to continue and continue and continue to kill and understand. because if his worm was satisfied, he would no longer need to do that. However, the war priest, Oryx's war priest, um, he was looking for a way to free Oryx of his worm and still gain power. The war priest is the one who hoped that with enough energy from killing, that Oryx's worm would be satisfied and detach itself, and Oryx be free from his burden. However, the sentence from Eris may be more metaphoric than literal. Somehow, presumably because of her time in the Hellmouth, Eris Morn is able to extract information from the calcified fragments, which in turn become verses from the Book of Sorrows. Now, if she's able to extract information, does it have to do with anything about the Acolyte eyes that she stole? Can she see something that we can't because she has the eyes of an Acolyte? The eyes of a creature who had a worm inside of them. A worm is what we are seeing here. Did she understand it? What about her bargain with Riven? Does that have any play in this? We don't know. A story about the bargain with the worms, which is the Book of Sorrows. It explains how, my bad. I didn't really clear this out. The Book of Sorrows is the origin story of the Hive. It basically talks. I read it before. If you guys want to go see it, I will put it's up. It should be up right now, as long as I didn't forget it. Over here. Check it out. I have parts 1, 2, and 3. 3. I believe it's up. I just don't know where it is. It doesn't show up after 2. No. In addition, it appears that Eris learns more about the calcified fragments by seeking out Morgath, the lore keeper, which was the knight within the Black Garden in the mission The Undying Mind, the alternate strike version, way to kill Morgath. Not Morgath as from the dungeon, but Morgath with an A. Eris actually tasks us with finding Morgath within the Black Garden to further her understanding of the fragments. The quest description reads, "The Hive were not always as they are. They were once something else. These fragments speak of the past. Morgath, the lore keeper, will know more." Eris Morn. When Eris says, "I behold the interiority of these cold, cold fragments. I see blind, squirming creatures," it could be reference to just understanding the Book of Sorrows and the bargain with the worms rather than literally seeing worms inside the fragments. However, it could also very well be literal, and there are, indeed, little worms inside of the calcified fragments. However, the worms do not have any energy to feed off of. That's kind of the rebuttal. In order to satisfy a worm, they must receive energy from the host. Think of it like a parasite. Okay? The host needs to have a healthy body in order for them to grow. If they do not grow, if they do not feed enough, they die. Or both species die. Whilst we may know for certain what lies, we may not know for certain what lies within calcified fragments, we do know that if ghost fragments tell the history of guardians, calcified fragments tell the history of the Hive. So it'd be pretty interesting if there was some lore you could find with the Cabal, the Fallen, the Vex, the Taken even. Well, I guess the Book of Sorrows is technically the origin of the Taken as well. Or how the Taken army actually rose to power, how they rose in general, how the Taken work, how the energy works. In the Book of Sorrows, verse 5, part 9, "I'll make sure," it confirms that Oryx created the Book of Sorrows. The verse reads, I have made preparations. If I am defeated, I know it will be because my understanding of the universe was incomplete. If I am defeated, I know that I will fall to something mighty, something that craves might, something that loves what I love, which is the deep, a principle and a power. So I will prepare a book, which is a map to a weapon. My vanquisher will read that book, seeking the weapon, and they will come to understand me, where I have been and where I was going. And then they will take up my weapon, and they will use it, the will use of that weapon, which is all that I am. So Oryx's weapon was the power of the deep, which was a principle and a power. The deep is what allowed Oryx to take. The deep would basically take. You would take the. You would take the soul, not necessarily the. You would take the soul and leave behind the body. You would dispose of the body, leave the soul, and then kind of bend the will to fit the will of the king, so Oryx. So they were basically just mindless souls, mindless bodies who were following Oryx's will, doing what he told them to do. Right. This Grimoire card suggests that Oryx strategically planted the calcified fragments. The calcified fragments containing verses from the Book of Sorrows were part of the preparations that he made, a backup plan in case he was defeated. Often to collect a fragment, Guardians had to show their might by destroying a powerful Ascendant Hive, or they must show that they are cunning and powerful by solving one of the many mysteries of the Dreadnought. I also believe this was part of Oryx's plan, that only those like him, those who love what he loves, which is the deep and understanding, could discover these fragments and uncover the story of the Hive, their origin, what caused them to become who they are, how Oryx rose to power, and the victories and losses of the Hive. Collecting classified fragments was only the first half of the test Oryx made. Oryx also created relics, which he hid within the most powerful Ascendant Hive, which was the Blade of Famine within the War Priest, the Shroud of Uranuk within the Death Singer Uranuk, and the Ravenous Heart within Oryx himself. Toland's journal refers to these items as keys. Keys to unlock what? We did not know. However, I believe this was the keys to unlock the power of the deep itself. The power to induce the sword logic upon those who you wielded the weapon against. After all, this is the purpose of the Touch Malice, to continue Oryx's work, which is the sword logic. The sword logic is the process of cutting out impurities in the world, in the universe around him, pushing it to its final shape. And Oryx also says that anyone who killed him was much more worthier of seeing the universe in its final shape. Toland's journal reads, the famine, the feeding, and always the Death Singer's shroud covers all. These are the keys. These are the keys. Toland's journal. This is interpreted as the final test, a being who had collected the calcified fragments and who now had understood the Book of Sorrows, the origin of the Hive, how Oryx rose to power, how the Hive consumed a worm to gain power, how the Hive hierarchy flows, the tithe, why Oryx fights and why he does fight, how he takes all of this is explained in the Book of Sorrows. And you have to read it to understand truly. Now, there is an actual going to be a physical copy of the Book of Sorrows by coming out from Bungie with the help of Myland Games, one of my all-time favorite Destiny lore YouTubers, in November. So I would definitely pick it up. It is going to be the Book of Sorrows, I believe, or at least there will be parts of the Book of Sorrows in there. Give it a read. It is one of my favorite bits of lore, and it's very complex too. But not only do we have to understand the Book of Sorrows, we have to understand the ancient knowledge of the Hive, the knowledge of the worms, the knowledge of the deep, the knowledge of the sword logic, and then would have to apply this knowledge in one final test. Kill the Hive leadership, including Oryx. So there are two parts of this test that Oryx created to understand the power of the deep, the sword logic, Hive hierarchy, all that stuff, the consumption of worms, etc. Then a test of might, which is to kill the Hive leadership, the War Priest, Oryx, Golgoroth, the Death Singers, Crota, all of them. Specifically in this one, the War Priest, the Death Singers, and Oryx himself. Now, these tests will also reveal that we are just like Oryx. We have to show that we are brave, that we are not afraid to kill, to take what we want. We have to show that we are wise, that we seek knowledge in order to understand what has happened and why. Just like Oryx. Oryx knew that if someone was able to do this, they had the traits necessary to take the throne and replace him, continuing his conquest of the universe. The touch of Malice is only available in Oryx's defeat. However, many believe that Oryx lives on through this weapon. I believe Oryx does live on through this weapon, where Oryx is... his soul is in the Revenant's heart. Whenever you are on the last shot, you can hear Oryx's chant a little bit, and we are inducing his logic, the logic he created of this, which is the sword logic. And as long as we continue to use the sword logic, Oryx will never truly die. In the Book of Sorrows, verse 5, part 9, reads, "And armed thus with my past and my future and my weapon, which is a weapon that takes whatever is available, a weapon bound to malice. They will mantle me, Oryx, the Taken King. They will become me, and I will become them, each of us defeating the other, correcting the other, allying ourselves into one omnipotent philosophy. Thus I will live forever. I'll make sure I ought." Many would argue that this card reinforces that Oryx is not dead and lives on. But what is Oryx's philosophy? The Book of Sorrows introduces the philosophy in verse 1, part 9, the bargain. This is where Oryx, who was at the time Orash, makes the bargain with the worm god Yule. Yule says, "Take into your bodies our children, our newborn larvae. From them you shall obtain eternal life. From them you shall gain power over your own fragile flesh, the power to make of it as you will. And you should find an imperfection in the world, an injustice or an inconvenience. You will have the power to repair it. Let no mere law bind you." Now what Yule means is that by correcting it, you will commit genocide. You will basically just cut out that impurity. Okay, imagine it's as if you have, let's say you have a pimple. You want to get rid of it. You will pop it. You will cut it out from you in order to get rid of it. This is when the philosophy starts, a conquest to create the perfect universe. Works believes that to build a perfect universe, you must snuff out any imperfection. Verse 2, Part 9. Crusaders of the Worm God, or it's just called Crusaders, one of the Worm Gods says, their golden age was a cancer. They did nothing to advance the cause of life. They burnt up time and matter, and thought on the soliphistic, onanistic pursuit of safety, insulating themselves from death, making a regressive pocket of useless stability, when they could have helped whittle the universe towards its final, perfect form. As you can see, the Hive philosophy is not about building cities and staying safe. It is about whittling the universe to its final perfect form by eliminating any imperfection, anything that is weak, anything that they conquer, anything that is unworthy is killed, uncut from the universe. The Hive uphold this philosophy through application of sword logic. The gain of power through killing in the act of killing proves that they are part of the final form of the universe. However, when we killed orcs, we proved that we are more worthy than orcs, and ultimately, we now use the sword logic as well. Now, interestingly, this philosophy is not uniquely Hive. This is the philosophy of the deep, or the darkness, that was forced upon the Hive through their symbiosis of the worms. Orcs had to adhere to this way of living in order to feed his worm. Even though this was not uniquely Oryx's in his defeat, he still wanted the system to live on, and this is more likely a reflection of the influence of the darkness. Now the cosmic battle between the light and the darkness may continue. Now again, the battle between the light and the darkness will always continue. It is a balance. When the traveler died, the darkness stopped pursuing it. Now this doesn't mean the Fallen and the Cabal, those are not heirs of the darkness. The darkness is its own force. That is why in the end cutscene of Destiny 2, when the traveler's light spreads throughout the galaxy, we could see these triangle ships, the darkness itself, as it begins to head its way to fight the traveler once again. But back to what we're talking about. To emphasize this point, we gotta argue that certain guardians have potentially switched sides and now agree with the philosophy of darkness. Toland is a name that comes to mind. Toland was not a heretic. Toland was obsessed with the Hive. He was going to be the speaker after the speaker. He was the speaker's student, pretty much. But he was obsessed with the Hive. The Oryx defeated Grimoire card illustrates this. Dwell a moment on the weight of what you've done. Contemplate the story you have just ended. Will you ever do anything that screams down the millennia? Will you ever hammer your will on the universe until it rings and rings and rings? Oryx was an awesome power. Show reverence. All right. Enough. A vacancy has opened, hasn't it? How interesting. Oh, very, very interesting. Do you ever pause, dear listener, to consider who benefits from all this heroism you commit? Do you ever look around you and feel the faintest chill, as if you are the tiny little ball bearing placed beneath a great mass, so that it might, if pushed, begin to roll? You'll regard yourself. Now, you've consecrated yourself. Emulate me. Use your power to learn. There are worse things to practice being. The mechanics of using touch malice mix that of a worm. It drains your light, making you more powerful at the cost of some of your health. However, you can also feed your health back by killing more enemies. By killing enemies, cutting them out of the universe, pushing the universe to its final shape. Touch of Malice, essentially it acts like an artificial worm. It encourages the wielder to uphold the philosophy of the darkness, the philosophy of the deep itself, just like Horus was forced to uphold the same philosophy when he sided with the worms. If this is the case, then why would Eris make such a weapon for us? A weapon that continues the work of the darkness, that of the deep. Surely, someone who has communed or has made a wish to an Ahamkara, one who has seen what the Hive can do, one who understands their philosophy, their history, their source of power. Surely she knows what she is crafting and how it will change us. But many believe, and I'm one of these people, believe that Eris Morn aimed to create the weapon differently than what Oryx originally intended. She says this: Osiris speaks of darkness as undisciplined chaos that knows only destruction. Toland, he speaks of the bargain. Pujari writes that the Black Garden grows in both directions. How to reconcile these teachings with the fragments? Eris Morn. I believe that Eris Morn has faith that guardians can resist the influence of the darkness when wielding the weapon. After creating the Touch of Malice, Eris leaves us with these final words. Oh yeah. Okay, my bad. Here comes the rain. Listen to these final words before we are left with the Touch of Malice. Take it, Guardian, and remember, they had a choice. Toland, Osiris, Pujari. But now, so do we. This implies that we still have control over our own destiny, that we can choose how to use the weapon. We can use it to cut out the impurity, use it in the way Oryx intended, use it to cut out the impurity, push the universe to its final shape, practice the sword logic, take up, and possibly even take up the Taken Throne itself, which we know is already taken over by Savathun and Riven. But we killed Riven now, so now it's Savathun we must worry about. Or we can wield the weapon differently. Use it for the power of the sky, for the benefit of the sky, which is the Traveler. The Traveler's creator, I should say, but the Traveler is a being of the sky. Whilst this may be true that we can use the weapon on our own choice, I think Ares created the Touch of Malice for more selfish reasons. Vengeance. This is very well supported with the item description of the Touch of Malice. Let them feel every lash, every curse, every touch of malice that they first dealt to me. Eris created the Touch of Malice to reflect back all the pain onto the Hive. All the pain that she had gone through in the Hellmouth, the pain of losing her friends, Ariana 3, and all the others. The pain of losing them, the pain of being lost, the pain of losing her sight, the pain of losing her ghost, even. Now she wishes to inflict that upon the Hive in the Touch of Malice. Eris's lust for revenge is reinforced in many mission dialogues. For example, my dreams will be filled with the sound of their wails as they died and fell at your feet. Eris, a single day on the moon was an eternity of torment. Let them know my pain. Ironically, though, as we gather more calcified fragments and Eris Morn learns more about the Hive, she becomes arguably empathetic towards them. The exotic mission dialogue reads, Guardian, long have I thought that no creature has suffered as I have, but now these fragments and relics have shown me my match in my own enemy. Before Eris received these fragments and understood their meaning, understood the lore behind them, she believed that she was the only one in the universe, in the infinity of the universe. She believed that she was the only one who had suffered as much as she had. That no one had suffered anywhere near as of high an account as she had. But she realized that the Hive have suffered. Some of them have suffered being consumed by the worms, which we don't know much about the process of being consumed by your own worm. But can't just use your imagination, okay? There is one last reason to why Eris agreed to make Touch of Malice. That is because she sensed a powerful enemy. The Touch of Malice Grimoire card reads, Here am I, with the power to craft from my weapon's darkest secrets a weapon that could wound them at their core. The voices are as loud as ever, my nightmares just as bitter. My coal-black hatred burns as hot. But I feel something else now. Could it be? No. I refuse it. I will build this weapon. You will notice that Eris's whispers previously subsided once we killed Oryx. However, now they've returned as loud as ever, and Eris says, I feel something else now. This something else, I believe, this has to be Savathun, Zyphu Aerith, or maybe now that we know that Riven did have control over the Taken Throne for a bit. At least I believe she had control over the Taken Throne. That was the presence that she felt. Especially knowing that both Savathun and Riven had a role in the leadership of the Taken. But this could also be Kiriya, a Vex Hydra, which is in the Book of Sorrows. That was eventually taken by Oryx and gifted to Savathun for her to study. Or maybe this was a reference to Malak. Or maybe this is a force we haven't yet seen. Interesting. This was the main reason Eris made the Touch of Malice. She sensed the return of a powerful being and needed to prepare Guardians, deciding that they must harness the power of the darkness to even have a chance at competing with this new threat. But the burden of wielding Touch of Malice should not be taken lightly, Guardians. Be sure to remind yourself that you always have a choice. Oryx, who was once Orash, who then became Arx, had a choice. He was the heir to the Osmium throne, was presented with certain death and the extinction of his entire species, but Orax chose survival and sided with worms in the deep. That was his choice. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you guys have any speculation, any lore you guys would like me to uncover or discuss, put so in the comment section. If anything you'd like to add, put that down in the comment sections. If you would like to support my channel but cannot think of a way, then put down Guardians make their own fate, which symbolizes the fact that we as Guardians, and we even as everyday people in the real world, always have a choice. A choice that we can go by. A choice that we can make for ourselves that will have a different outcome. Oryx chose the deep. He chose to enslave his people What will us guardians choose to do instead? What will we choose to do with the 1,000 voices? Will we make a wish? Or will we be silent once more? Thank you. See you guys next time.